I'll tell you when, Charlie. All right, we're good.
Welcome back, everybody. Episode 7 of the Indigenous Virtual Speaker Series. I'm really excited about today's special guest. We got temperature of 59 degrees right now, so it's a beautiful sunny day, high with the expected high of 62. It's a little weather update. I know it's pretty fun to kind of bring this into a casual setting, so I'm happy to provide that information. Before we get into today's talk, I just want to introduce some of the panelists we have. It's a part of the Two Feathers Native American Family Services organization, starting off with Amada Lang. So go ahead, Amada.
Hey everyone, my name's Amada. I'm a local Karuk native. I recently graduated from Humboldt in 2019, and I'll be heading back there to pursue my master's degree in the Environment Community Program. Super excited to be working with Two Feathers and doing all of the services that they provide and expanding on them and learning how to expand on them with Britta's talk today. And I also just want to throw out there, Britta, it was an honor to introduce you because I had a hard time putting together your introduction based on all of your accomplishments and roles within the Indian healthcare community and all of the systems you've done. But Britta is a graduate from Humboldt State University in 1996 and went on to begin her healthcare career in nonprofit clinics, which then grew to her becoming the CEO of the nonprofit Sacramento Native Health Center and working with this organization for over a decade. She also received her PCMH accreditation, which led to SNAH being the first organization in California to receive this recognition as a patent-centered health home. And under Britta's leadership, they have also expanded its operating budget from $248,000 to $25 million in 10 years' time, which I thought was really awesome. Britta has a passion for providing healthcare to the underserved, and why she continues to work and ensure that Native Americans have access to this healthcare in urban areas such as Sacramento, where she is working. And she is founding member and vice chair of the California Consortium of the Urban Indian Health, a leader in the healthcare field today, was appointed to the California Endowment Board of Directors since the early 2019, is a member of the San Carlos Apache tribe, and a mother of 2. And thank you for joining us today and giving us viewers at home an insight to your work and ways to better understand and support our Indigenous communities around us. And I'll go ahead and kick it off to our others over here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I'll go with the first question, Britta. I just wanted to just get to understand you a little bit more, and with those great accomplishments and just your work over the last 2 decades, what motivates you? What drives you to keep showing up? Because I can only imagine how hard and how many ups and downs there has been in this work that you're doing. And so what drives you? What motivates you? Where did this come from? Yeah.
So I guess when I think about what motivates me and what drives me to continue this work, anyone who works in their own community, regardless of what race or what ethnic group you represent, you know how hard it is working with your own folks. I think that will always be an issue. You're either too Indian, you're not Indian enough, you're too experienced, maybe you don't have enough experience, maybe you're from the area, out of the area, she doesn't represent me or she doesn't speak for me, that kind of thing. And you get a lot of criticism. And the work, in addition, I think is hard. But the services that we offer here, I utilized a lot of those services as a young person. WIC, Medi-Cal, TANF, free vaccine programs, all of those services helped my family to be successful. Since I didn't see a lot of Native women in leadership positions, especially in healthcare or more corporate setting. I didn't know that that was something I could actually be. And so I take that representation piece very seriously. there's a lot of places where I have gained a seat at the table, and now I take that responsibility of bringing up people behind me to also be represented at that table. I don't speak for anyone, but I feel like if people see me in these spaces, that they know that it's a possibility for them too. Also, I believe very profoundly that healthcare is a right. And in communities of color, and specifically the Native community, we've been underfunded and overlooked, disenfranchised for so long, that if I can be any part of the solution, no matter how small, that's my life's work, to give back to my community and make sure that we have access, and access creates opportunity. And without those two things, I worry that we'll never be included in the system that has worked so hard to exclude us.
Thank you for that. I'm going to pass it over to Shoshone, and maybe introduce yourself a little bit, and then a question follow up to Britta.
Sure.
Perfect. Yeah, so I'm Shoshone. I'm a local Yurok native, and I'm finishing up my master's program in counseling psychology at Humboldt State to become a marriage and family therapist. And I just took this position at Two Feathers as a mental health therapist, and I'm beyond blessed for it, to be able to work in my communities and provide a much needed service. And the question that I had to follow up is that you sat on the board of directors for the largest foundation in California, the California Endowment. And what has it been like to represent Indian country on that level?
Well, it's extremely humbling that I would be considered. I thought when they were doing all of my background check that for sure something was going to come up, that they would find out who my family was, or that I was going to not be considered for whatever reason. You know, you kind of have some of that imposter syndrome. Like if they find out that I'm really this nerd, you know, who grew up the way that I did and came from where I came from, they're not really going to want me in that place. But luckily, I think that they see the value of different perspectives. And I really am passionate about my work, and I feel like I want to represent community health centers. I want to represent Indian community. And even at the California Endowment, where it's one of the largest foundations, obviously in the state, but also in the country, very little of their funding has gone to Indian country. And I think that that has to change. And so you've got a tenure on that board that's 9 years. And I'd like to think that over that 9 years, having me present will have an impact on what their funding allocations look like to Indian country. Again, it's a responsibility that I carry. And there's a lot of responsibility on those of us who are in these places. And so I just want to do my best to make sure that we're included in the decision-making process. And I'm doing my best to, I've got a lot of great mentors who, you know, I bounce things off and I wonder, how do I show up and how do I represent in the best way that I can? And I've got a lot of folks who support me, and I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, I really like how you mentioned the importance of representation in these positions, because I know as a fellow grad student itself, like I think the reason why I was able to kind of know that, you know, kind of avoid that imposter syndrome is to see that representation and see that guidance, and like, no, this is like this, they need you, you know, they need your perspective more than you know. And it really does make a difference just seeing it into fruition.
Absolutely.
Mata, did you have a question for us?
I do. So, Britta, I just going over all of your goals, accomplishments, what you've done since you started working for the Sacramento healthcare system that you felt like pretty much started, it seems like it all foundation. I wanted to see, what are some of the biggest accomplishments that you feel are received from providing a quality healthcare system through a culturally competent and family-centered delivery system within Indigenous communities that are underserved?
So you're asking me what my biggest achievements are in this role?
Yes.
Well, I guess for me, as a young person, you say to yourself, like, someday when I'm in charge, I'm going to create a system that works for people. And so we hire folks from the community. We pay a living wage. We invest in our employees' development. We actually have a fund that provides additional earning potential opportunities for them so they can get additional certificates, additional training. We pay for their education to kind of grow our own in the organization. So we have folks who've come in as custodians who are now counselors. We have folks who come in as receptionists who are now nurses. Receptionists, dental assistants who have gone on to be hygienists, and grow all through the organization. We offer competitive wages. We offer, and I don't feel like it's a lie when I say this, but we offer pretty luxurious benefits as far as taking care of the employee, and 50% of the employee's benefits. We have a culture here where we want our employees to be successful. And I think in a way to evidence that, in the last 2 years, we had 18 staff members buy their first homes. And to me, I feel like when you help create stability for your employees, you help to create stability for their families. And then there's that trickle effect of things that we didn't think were possible for us are now possible. And the kids are benefiting from that. And knowing that we're creating an organization that cares about our people and truly wants our people to feel healthy physically, spiritually, mentally, that includes their families, and being able to be some part of that, I think, is the biggest accomplishment for me. Obviously, we've grown the organization. We have 212 employees. We're a pretty large organization. There's a lot of milestones that we've achieved. I think the accreditation, the AAAHC accreditation is huge. The patient-centered health home model is huge. Those are the clinical aspects of the work. Not only are we providing excellent health care, but we're competing with non-Indian health facilities. And I feel like people, they want to hear how we are responding, like with COVID, or how we feel about a bill or legislation. And I'm in those meetings with the county, and I am one of their valuable partners. And to me, that feels like we're not just an Indian clinic. We are a health center. We're part of the safety net in Sacramento, and they depend on us. And that feels like we're not just a minority health center. We're a health center, and we matter here in this community. And that feels so good to not just be thought of as an afterthought.
Okay. That's a lot of achievements, and it's awesome to see the resiliency though within the whole, from working from the ground up and allowing your workers to be able to make something of themselves and bring it back, show their families. I think that's huge within Two Feathers. I'm working with youth all pretty much my whole entire time. And that's one of the things is we're trying to make an impact within their lives from a young start with some of the services that they might not be getting. And you're providing that within just the healthcare and providing it for the jobs for their families. And you mentioned the accreditations that you've gotten. I was curious how these helped you acquire culturally appropriate resources, because I noticed, like, I was curious, you mentioned there was like a youth wellness room within one of the community healthcare centers, and it was really interesting to me how that worked as well.
Well, I think the accreditation and the cultural piece, you can meet all of the requirements of a medical center, of a health center, but you can still provide culturally appropriate care. Now that means that not only are we having systems in place that honor people's culture where they come from, we deliver services in a way that are meaningful to us. So mind, body, spirit, we have a traditional practitioner on site who provides herbal medicine as part of the delivery in the medical clinic. We have a lot of groups and modalities that put Native healing at the center. We don't belong to a tribe, so there is a little of that kind of pan-Indian feeling here because we are a multicultural Native environment. But bigger than that, being culturally appropriate means we're honoring where people come from if they're non-Native. I mean, are they Hmong? Are they Filipino? Are they Black? Are they Latino? Are we honoring the culture that they arrive with also? It's pretty wonderful to show up in an organization that honors Native people at the center, but also is very respectful of everyone in the community and of other cultures where we live. We know how important those partnerships are. So I think valuing what everybody brings to the table. And I know there's a lot of stories about how when the community comes together, all of the different colors will be represented, and that will bring the true healing. And that's where my mind goes as far as making sure we represent who we are in what we do, but we also respect everyone and what they bring.
Okay. That definitely sounds like I would get that accreditation if I owned a healthcare system as well. And it hasn't.
Well, the accreditation just means that we are meeting the national standard. And so for Indian health centers, it's like, oh, we're not just an IHS clinic. We're not just the county clinic where you're going to receive poor services. You're getting the highest quality services. And that I feel like I'm super proud of.
Well, and you guys were the first organization to gather that as well. So you're setting a standard and a viewpoint pretty much for Native communities to follow and show them that it's possible too. So I think that's awesome.
I played sports for a lot of years and I'm super competitive, so I like to be first.
I can relate to that as well. I still try to go back and coach too. So I definitely can. Virgil, do you have any questions you'd like to ask?
Yeah, I was wondering, I think all of us on here today have had to navigate multiple worlds. Some would call it like living in two worlds, but I think it's more than two worlds. It's a multicultural world. So there's multiple cultural approaches or cultural worldviews that we have to navigate and go through, whether it's a college student or a high school student or a professional. And so my question to you, Britta, is like, how have you been able to, like, on a personal level, been able to manage, living in multiple worlds? And, some would call it like code switching, but, I don't know if that's the correct term, but I'm just wondering at a personal level, for those of you and the students that are out there listening to you right now, like, because it seems like you've been able to do that at a really, really high level and garner respect in multiple cultures. And so I'm wondering how you were able to been able to do that at a personal level.
Well, it's funny because you started to ask that question and I wrote down right here, code switch. I think you have to show up as your absolute authentic self. And people will see that and they'll know who you are because you allow them to. I think, I'm not for everybody. People will want me to be more professional, or they'll want me to be more down to earth, or they'll want me to be more native or less native or whatever it is. And I feel like part of our kind of traditional way of knowing is being able to meet people where they are. You never hear a story that's not meant for you. You never are offered a teaching until you're ready. And so I feel like you show up as your authentic self and you meet people where they are, and what they're ready to hear. And there are ways to show up in a very professional way, but still be who you are and represent your community. I feel like, I'm definitely rough around the edges, and I'm confident in who I am. And, people are going to want me to be different to fit their own ideals. Like people, oh, I have a Native friend, or, you must be that same way. And I can only be who I am. And I hope that people accept me as I am, but there's a lot of folks who don't. I'm not for everybody. I really wake up every day knowing that I want to be excellent, and that can be intense. So I want our patients to always be at the center of what we do. And I feel like Native people have always been excellent, and we deserve better. And when we settle for things because that's the way it's always been, I don't find that to be true. And I think that we have always had excellent systems, and we always have to be striving for growth. I hear people say often, Native people don't like change. That's not true. We are adaptable. The materials that we've used, whether it's clay or willow or it's all adaptable, and we are adaptable to our environments. And so if it's code switching, that's used sometimes in a derogatory way, but I think it's a talent. I think it's a real skill. And, you communicate with people based on what they can handle and what they're ready to receive. And you do your best to meet them where they are. And sometimes I miss and I fail, but I'm always trying.
Thanks, Shoshone.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Britta. That really resonates with me. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about your patient-centered home health model that you had mentioned earlier. Give us a little bit more in-depth information for our listeners.
Yes. So the patient-centered health home is actually pretty fantastic. It's where you can be a member, like a Kaiser member, except you're in a community health center and you are at the center of the decision making. So you hear a lot about non-compliance. So this patient won't take their medication and they're non-compliant. And really the patient dictates the way that they're going to be successful. So we manage the referrals that they want. We manage the resources that are going to help them to be successful. So maybe they need Medi-Cal, or maybe they need an interpreter, or maybe they need transportation. So we're looking at the social determinants, and then we're looking at what is it that you need that's going to add value to the services that you receive. So maybe they need pain management or chiropractic care or podiatry. We are bringing a lot of specialty care here on site so that we don't have to send our patients out to another location. So ways to manage our patients 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, keeping them out of the emergency room and keeping them in the continuity of our system, which means they know who their providers are. They know how to reach them after hours. They know kind of all of the services that they can get with us. Instead of going to the emergency room and waiting 8 hours, they can call our after hours number and make sure that we can treat them over the phone. We really adapt to what their needs are. Maybe they need traditional services. We'll make sure that we arrange that for them also. So it's really removing barriers. The healthcare system is super complicated, and just making sure that we simplify that for them, or do our best to simplify that, so that there aren't so many hurdles to overcome to getting the diagnosis or the treatment that you need.
And I had a follow-up to, that's, you described, implementing that system, and you've also talked a little bit about sort of your own personal qualities. And my question is how have you been able to set that organizational culture? Like, I would guess it's a big part of it is leadership, but then what kind of leadership? And how, have you been able to really set an organizational culture that it seems like from an outsider is excellent or striving towards excellent, where people are bought in to push and get outside of their comfort zone and expand and become better? And so how do you see that the organization and you have been able to set that organizational culture?
Well, I've had a lot of really great mentors who've shown me what's possible. And now I feel like I know that there's so much possible for us. And I mean, we talk about, my staff is full of unicorns. I mean, everyone has all of these talents that I am just in shock of, but they're subject matter experts. And when we get together in a room, we don't always agree, but we disagree in a very united way. And everyone wants to do their best and be their best. And I think we bring that out of people because we are striving for excellence for our patients all the time. And so people who are excellent naturally are drawn to this environment because we're definitely innovative. We are very agile. We like to test and try things. I mean, we're the major healthcare nerds, if you think about what that is. We're always willing to try new things, and it works for people and they thrive in that environment, or it really doesn't. I think that we've set up a culture where people want to be part of it and they really want to be part of the success. And then also there's been times, I mean, the culture here, it's been hard to achieve. I mean, we've had a lot of kind of lessons learned the hard way and kind of painful lessons too. So I don't want to present like it's all fantastic. I mean, I've definitely taken my knocks over the years and learned a lot of lessons the hard way. And, there's still things I look back on that I just don't feel good about. But I think it's part of the growth. And I come from a place of wanting to do what's best for the organization, do what's best for our patient population. And it attracts those types of people. And I think we offer a leadership coach for all of our directors and our managers. We're looking for leadership at all levels. And I'm a sports person, and although I don't love the Lakers, I love the Lakers defense, which means anybody can be the lead on any project. And it doesn't always have to be me. It doesn't always have to be the leader of that department. You allow your leaders to lead, and you take a step down, or you take a back seat, or you play forward or center, and let somebody else score, because it's really about the team. And when the team succeeds, everyone succeeds.
Nice. It's very motivating.
I believe it. I swear. It's like, I'm such
you
a dork.
mentioned a couple of like mentors,
Yeah.
and if you would be kind enough just to talk about, I mean, you can name them or you don't have to, but like, what did they teach you and what, you know, because a big part of the program that we have at Two Feathers is like this intergenerational sort of coaching mentorship to, you know, that goes from elders all the way to kids, or at least what we're trying to implement. And so, you know, I think we come from people that have been teach from elders to kids. And so I'm curious, like those mentors that you talked about, and what was it that, you know, that you took from them?
Well, I think for me, the biggest gift was letting me know that I was good enough, that I deserved to be where I was. And although I deserved it, I still had to work to prove, you know, you have to continuously be striving. It's not that you just make it and then you stay there. That you have a responsibility, and your responsibility is to take care of your people. And it's really about making relatives, and the relationships that I've made with people, I think, are more valuable than any policy I've ever written, although I write great policies. It's like the relationships with people and doing what I said I would do, that people have come to count on me, and I let them know through my work that I'm dependable. So when people think of healthcare, or when they think of a Native issue, they think of me. And then if I'm not the right resource, at least I connect them to the right resources. And that if I tell someone I'm going to do something, that I don't drop the ball. I do what I say I would do. And people know that if they need something, I'm going to come through for them. I think that there's nothing more valuable than your word. I want to make the people around me proud. I have some fantastic board members who I want them to feel like they continuously make the right decision with me in this position by honoring and respecting their vision. And the people on my board are important to the community, and the people who've mentored me are so important in my life that I want to continuously please them and bring their vision and their dreams for us, for our people, to fruition. And it feels so good to be able to do that in my work. I mean, I get paid to do this, and I love it.
Nice. That's it comes across as you talk, and you know that just being authentic, which is very much what I appreciate about you, just being real, and being able to do that code switching. But, I was gonna, I know Amada, you know, had a question that's gonna bring it on home for us up here in Humboldt. So, Amada.
Yeah, I was curious, Britta, about your time at HSU and how you're a huge leader, of a woman leader too in the healthcare systems. It kind of relates to me and kind of going into the healthcare field, as well as the fellow grad students that are working for us. How did working with HSU kind of pave the way for where you led to now in Sacramento, like just being in this little rural area and kind of leading to a CEO position?
So I was never a good student, and something that HSU taught me was really how to learn and how to use resources and how to ask for help, but also to call on alumni to help me with the problem, or to connect me with the right people. HSU has created a lot of leaders in a lot of different places and a lot of different spaces. And I think I'm surprised that our little school creates these amazing leaders. And I think that really it's about creating and making your own resources. And that was something that I learned there. Like, how do I solve this problem? What are my resources? Who are my partners? Who are the people that I can rely on? And I think I really learned that there. What's my network look like? And who do I know that I can ask for help, who've been here, who've done this? You're not expected to know everything. And it doesn't matter, if you're a CEO or whatever direction you decide to go, you always have to ask for help. And always be open to guidance, peer guidance. I've got a lot of young people on my staff, and I love when they mentor me, and you have to be willing to accept that. So peer mentorship, people are experts in their own experience, and allowing them to teach you. I learned how to learn, and I feel really good about that.
I feel the same way coming out of HSU too, which makes me feel a lot better in the sense that you gathered that even in your time going there. So they're still holding up that standard. Yeah. And do you still utilize any of the services that were there at HSU, or any of those leaders like ITEP, or any of the people that worked within the ITEP services, or any of that sorts?
I still have an email address. I don't utilize it so much. I have a lot of folks who are in Sacramento who have graduated from there. I don't necessarily rely on those networks being down here, but just individuals and the relationships that I have, they're still so important.
Definitely. I'm glad that it has made a core in you too, though, because it sounds like it's embedded in you where it's come from and accredited to that. So thank you.
Absolutely.
I have a question. Yeah, I was, you may have said this and this may go without saying, but I'm very much like a local person. Like, how do we get these resources, these frameworks back to the local community? So I was just wondering, you mentioned how like there's herbal clinics, like really getting in back to like the culture of it. Like, sure, Western medicine is really a powerful tool to solve some of the things that we're going through as a community. So I'm just wondering, how could, this local area in Humboldt County kind of adopt some of those leadership dynamics that you kind of spoke to make sure that this is infiltrating even more rural communities, Well,
rural communities are so special because I think although you don't have as many people in the area concentrated, you still have all of this expertise. And in California, we're so lucky, even in rural areas, we do have a lot of opportunities for partnership. And I think if there's something that I could suggest, it would be to really look outside of the IHS network or look outside of the tribe for other organizations that do really good work and are being excellent, and look at ways that you can work with them. You can enhance what they're doing. They can enhance what you're doing. I work in an Indian clinic. I think Indian modalities for healthcare are super important. But if I'm having a heart attack, save me. I don't care what color or ethnicity or language that you speak. But also, how can I offer something to maybe the emergency room, or how can I partner with them? How can I work with other experts and make what they do better? And it's not just the cultural perspective. I think we have so much value in our cultural perspective, but we also have so much knowledge and expertise in areas that we don't kind of brag about. I mean, there's so many experts that I'm talking to on this in this interview that I'm just like, I'm floored. I think like, man, I would love to have her on my staff. Oh, he's got to come work for me. But there's that piece of, look at all of this excellence, and how do we leverage that to make more excellence, to be greater. And I know that when we work together, Indian community and bring our non-Indian community partners in, there's ways that we can be better together.
Yeah, that's really profound. I really appreciate that. That's inspiring in many ways. So I guess now would be an appropriate time to hear from the community that we're always talking about. Starting with in our comment section, there's a really good question by William Russell. Please speak about your behavioral health department, staff, and roles in major events held throughout the year. Also, please speak to the dual approach of indigenous-based methods and Western-based methods, and some kickback you may have in that kind of dynamic? Because I know it's an ongoing issue.
Yes. So everything is a balance. We have some traditional Native respected elders in our behavioral health department. They do individual counseling, they're KDACs, they're therapists. We have LCSWs on site, we have psychiatry on site, and really it's finding the balance of what each individual person needs. We always have Native group teaching, and those come from a cultural perspective provided by staff who are qualified to teach those groups. And then also on an individual basis, actually there's a Facebook Live coming up with Albert Tittman, who's one of our counselors, and he's also one of Sacramento's first people. His family's from here. He's an elder in the community. He does a lot of spiritual work. We have a couple of those folks on staff that teach kind of Red Road teachings, healing our people through education. We have positive Indian parenting, anger management, family reunification, and they're all utilizing positive Indian parenting and kind of Indian teachings, and they're woven throughout. Now, if a native person or a non-native person wants to utilize a piece of Western medicine and a piece of Native medicine and maybe some spiritual teachings, we encourage you to find what works best for you. Everyone has an opinion and everyone thinks they know what's best for you, but really relying on what you know inherently, even if it's different from what your family has said. We're so individual and so unique that finding the best path for ourselves, especially when it comes to mental health, and if you need to be on medication or you need to go to the sweat lodge or you need to see a spiritual person, find what works best for you, and our job is to help facilitate that. Did I answer the question?
Yeah, that was really good. The second part of it was, I guess you kind of answered it too, is just like some of the potential kickback that you may get from having that approach, that balanced approach.
Well, I think the kickback might be how people don't want us to practice Native spirituality or Native cultural practices for wellness. This is a Native organization, and I think people don't have to utilize it if they don't want to, but it's here if you do decide you want it. And for Native people who may think that we shouldn't be providing these teachings, I know that it's a responsibility for us to share our knowledge, and it's important for us to all be part of the solution. And I think sharing is a Indigenous right. I think that's how we've always done it. So
yeah, that's pretty true. You can only do so much. You can only please so many people. And I think that's pretty important. And I think that Shoshone has a pretty good question that's kind of following up to that.
okay.
Yeah, so the question is by Maggie Madden, and it's asking, are services available to Indigenous people who are not able to enroll with their tribe, or their tribe is not federally recognized? And then maybe how does this tie into Indigenous identity development?
So I am not the BIA. Our organization is not the BIA. It is not our job to determine who's Native. Our job is to determine who's eligible for services using IHS dollars. And then for people who are not eligible for IHS, people who aren't eligible for IHS dollars, our job is to find out who the right payer source is for them. Are they eligible for CDP or FAMPACT or Medi-Cal, or do they have a share of costs? Can we have cash paying opportunities? Do we have a sliding fee scale based on their income that helps them be eligible to pay? Are there any other programs that will pay for their services? And I think that that's an area where we've really excelled. We know that IHS is a system. It's not always the best system. And so our goal is to leverage additional funding and additional opportunities for people to have covered services, regardless of their ability to pay. And if somebody's been disenrolled, or if someone can't prove they're Native, we simply don't apply their services to IHS dollars. We look for other funding streams to pay for their services, and usually we are successful.
I really appreciate that approach, because it allows for a greater majority of people to get services that are much needed. And also just the identity development piece is so crucial, and to have it be so black and white sometimes can have these huge effects for people. So that's very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's really important, especially when we're talking about how impactful, colonialism is to Native peoples. I think that's one of the intentional purposes of like the society, is to kind of dilute, if you will, to make sure that the services kind of slip through the crack. And it's just another form of kind of marginalization of Native peoples. And, I really appreciate, just that's not our job, because, that leave those to the feds type of thing, because we're just on the ground trying to serve the people who we can, and we know we can. And so, yeah, I really appreciate that insight. Just real quick, I just want to encourage a lot of viewers to ask some questions, because we do have a little bit more time, and we definitely want to pick the brain of Britta Guerrero. It's really been a pleasure being on this. So I encourage you all to comment. It doesn't have to be a question, it could just be a talking point. Virgil, did you want to say something?
Yeah, we with most of our 6 speakers, we've asked this question, and and as you know, there's not a right or wrong answer, but I think just identity, and Shoshone talked about cultural identity development, indigenous identity development is so important to indigenous people in our lives living in 2020, and so my question is like, if there was one word or a sentence that indigenous, this could be Native, just be Indian or whatever, what is the indigenous identity to you?
Connection.
And then when you say connection, like, could you unpack a little bit the reason for choosing that word?
Well, I think there's a lot of meaning behind that. I think we're connected to our families, we're connected to our tribes. We've all been blessed with generations of teaching and protection. And although some of our families are not living on the reservation, some of us are living in the cities, we're still deeply connected to who we are. And we create these relationships, we create relatives in the city with other Native people. And that connection, you really don't have to explain who you are or what you've been through. I mean, people want to know who your family is, and you're happy to do that. But I think we know what each other has been through, and it doesn't require us to retell our stories all the time or talk about our struggles necessarily. There are things we know about each other and that we appreciate about each other on our struggles, and have compassion for each other. We connect with each other through those stories. And some of us have had it difficult, and some not so difficult. Some have grown up on the reservation, some have grown up in the city. But the connection that we have to each other as Indian people is so unique and beautiful that there's something special about us. And I think we all know that. And when we're together, it's magic. It's amazing. And I think I'm still in awe of the way that we connect to each other so purely and wholly, there's just something magical about being in a room of Native women laughing, or being with other Native people. It's, you don't have to explain anything. It just is. And it's pure and beautiful.
And yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And a follow-up with this idea of connection, a lot of what we've been doing at Two Feathers is youth work, right? And we're really trying to work around sort of prevention issues and how to prevent some of the issues that plague some of our communities. And I think connection is a big part of that, right? A connection with yourself, connection with your community, your culture. And so my question is the part of Sacramento Native American Health Center that works with youth, like what do you see as working? What do you see? What is the direction you're going in around prevention work and youth at the health center? And what is maybe like worked and didn't work around youth?
Well, we have been super blessed to have access to large federal grants that have allowed us to be creative in providing services to youth. We have a Native Youth Ambassadors program, actually led by a Hoopa young woman, and she has made some really great relationships in the community. We've worked very hard to create a Native Youth Ambassadors. We have a snack ambassadors, which are really Native youth leaders in our community who give other young people motivation, and they want to aspire to be like these young people. And they're also peer counselors, peer mentors. I mean, they really are there for each other, and they create these really unique, safe spaces. We are in the process of opening another clinic, and in that clinic, we are designing a youth center and what that's going to look like for youth being able to access services. The connection is important. I think with youth, it's really understanding what their role is in the community and how special they are. The generations before them have made sacrifices for them to be here, and they are the answers to our prayers. And I think that they don't see, like most young people, how special and how wonderful and beautiful they are. And I see them, and I just am in awe of the things that they talk about, and the topics like mental health and being part of the LGBT community, or the way that they speak so openly and so they're just so much more advanced than I was at that age. And I think about how proud of them I am and how far they've come. Things that I would have never talked about as a young person, depression or mental health, it comes so naturally and so purely from them, the way that they speak. And I'm so proud of them. And I don't think they realize the cycles that they're changing and the cycles that they're breaking. I know that when I think about leadership, I look at those young people and I know we're going to be okay.
Thank you. That was moving. Yes, else.
I love those kids.
Yeah, that's something that's been pretty consistent with each one of the speakers we've had, is just how motivating the next generation is, and just how proud, like you said, we're really proud to be able to be like, this is going to be you one day, and just being able to be in position to show that it is possible if you put yourself in a good position to make these opportunities possible. And that kind of goes to this another question that we got in the comment section from a fellow Two Feathers clinician, Molly Hilgenberg. What do your services, or wait, She has two of them, sorry. How do you evaluate your services and know when you are being effective, especially with youth? And what do your services for Two-Spirit youth look like?
Okay, so first I'll deal with evaluation. I think we have ideas for how we know what we're doing is effective, and then the youth come in and tell us that we're wrong. I think the youth know what is successful for them or what success looks like. And I don't think we put enough weight into their opinions. So our evaluation process really consists of evaluating how the family feels about our impacts, how the community feels about the programs that we're doing. We evaluate the levels of engagement, the levels of participation, the kind of trainings that the youth have been able to participate in, the leadership opportunities that they've engaged in. You know, we're always looking at ways that we can improve, and we ask them to tell us how we can do that. So lots of evaluation happens here all the time. Kind of small scale and much larger, kind of ongoing groups, kind of town halls and different committees that we've created of parents, of families of children, maybe who've been in the mental health system or what have you. And I forgot the other part of the question.
Yeah, the second one is just a second, I gotta get it back to it.
Sorry.
It's
So
okay.
LGBT.
What does your service look like for Two-Spirit youth?
Well, we have a Two-Spirit talking circle that happens on a weekly basis. One of the things about being in the city is that we've seen a high demand for hormone therapy for transgender community folks. And we're providing those services. This is a safe space. We are right next door to the LGBT Center. A lot of opportunities for us to work together. Again, that's really about utilizing our partners. One of our staff is on the board of the LGBT Center. So we really are committed to creating safe spaces for LGBT youth and the community in general. It's something I'm very passionate about. I worked with our Gender Health Center and the local LGBT Center. We sponsor many of their events, and we make sure that there's an Indian face in those spaces. So there are very close partners, there are allies, and we're theirs.
Wow, that's really powerful. I think that's something that a lot of organizations, especially in the mental health facilities, could really adopt and really flourish in. It's really about that community and engaging with communities, like, and empowering them, not just like, well, we could do this for you. You know, it's really important to empower them from within. And I think Shoshone had something to add.
Yeah, we got a really great comment here, and then it has a question at the end. So Stephen Cheney said they wanted to uplift Britta as a strong Indigenous woman and CEO. Women comprise a very small percentage, less than 6% of all CEOs in the United States. Way to go, Britta. Any advice for young women and men wanting to find themselves in a role like yours?
Let's see, any advice? I think people have opened doors for me. People have created opportunities for me. Probably that sometimes I didn't deserve. And now that I'm in this role, creating opportunities for other people because I see their potential is a responsibility that I have. Making sure that I'm creating opportunities for young people who are coming up behind me. But if you do what you love, I mean, I am so passionate about this work. I mean, yes, I have to do paperwork and I have to write grants and I have to do payroll. And, you know, there are things I don't love to do, but the job, the actual work that I get to do every day, I still get up, you know, after 10 plus years and I feel blessed and I feel lucky and privileged and honored to do this work. And even on my most difficult day, I know that it's bigger than me. And I try to always be in a place of being grateful and having gratitude for being given opportunity. And I'm paying that back at every opportunity that I get to make sure that there's someone who wouldn't get that seat at the table, somebody who wouldn't get the opportunity to use their voice. And if I can create that platform, whether it's for the LGBT community or be a resource to someone, I'll do that. So I guess my advice would be to learn every single thing you can and be open. I feel like we often get into these places where we think we know best. And you do know what's best for you, but to think bigger than yourself, to see the big picture and know that you get to be part of that. It's amazing. It's really amazing. And you might not understand the lesson in that moment, but be open to learning it. So valuable.
Really well said. That's really inspiring. And I think that's going to be something that a lot of our viewers will be able to kind of contribute to their own like self-confidence. I think that's really important in these times. So I think we're approaching our hour mark. So if there's anything you kind of want to finish off on, Britta, like if there's any shout outs or any type of time to take this opportunity, I think that would be a great way to kind of wrap it up.
Well, shout out to you guys. I'm so proud of you and all of the Two Feathers staff and of what you guys are doing. I'm a fan of Virgil, so whenever he asks me to do anything, I always say yes. I'm so proud of you guys. I know you were a Circles of Care grantee. That's fantastic. That grant is so competitive, and I know that you can do a lot of great work with it, and I'm happy to participate anytime you invite me. Shout out to my staff. I get a lot of credit for their work. They make me look good. They work so hard and they come here every day with the same passion that I have. And I hope that I'm conveying that to you guys. It takes a lot of people doing a lot of good work and loving what they do to make this happen. And so letting them do that, when you're in charge, you get to let people do their life's work and achieve their dreams. And I think there's nothing more powerful than that.
Right on. We thank you very much on behalf of the organization. Go ahead, Virgil.
Thank you.
Thank you, Britta.
Thanks, you guys. Appreciate it.
Just real quick before we leave to the audience, I just want to do a little check-in before we close out. This next speaker series will feature Tommy Orange, author of They're There. So I'm really excited about that one. So I encourage you all to save the date for Thursday. Time is still to be determined. So be on the lookout for any flyers that will state that time. We're really excited. And also just a quick reminder for tomorrow's youth engagement series featuring one of our mentors and Chris Shaw. We have a lot of ideas that we have one circulating right now. So it's going to be a surprise. It's going to be coming down to the last minute as far as what we're going to do. And so I'm really excited because we got really good ideas and it's really going to be fun for the kids, for the family. And it's going to be a little bit of a switch up as far as what we're doing here, virtual reality. So we'll see you guys then. I hope you guys enjoy the day. Sunic.
Thank you, Britta.
Thank you. Bye, Virgil.
Yeah.